Welcome to the Content 10X Podcast, the show where content creators learn how to harness the power of content repurposing. And now, your host, Amy Woods.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Content 10X Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, and I've got a really great show today. So we're talking about video marketing, and I have a wonderful guest on this show, Jason Hsiao. So Jason is the co-founder and chief video officer of Animoto. So Animoto is an award-winning online video maker that makes it easy for anyone to create professional quality videos. Even if you have no technical skills and you haven't created a video before, it's really cool. And Jason founded Animoto back in 2006 with the hope of empowering people to create video regardless of age or experience. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for having me. It's a real privilege.
What did I miss in that intro? It was a very short intro. I'm sure there's lots that I missed. Could you fill in some of the gaps, please?
Oh, yeah. Well, so my whole world really is as part of this Animoto team where we're basically, just empowering folks with, with the power of video. And, we all see how video is everywhere and changing everything. And so we are just really focused, particularly with small businesses, the folks that they see the video wave coming or here, right? And but they're like, oh, by the way, I have no experience, no time, and I don't have like these extravagant budgets like these big companies do. And so that's really where we come in, Animoto comes in, where we give folks the tools and make it really, just drag and drop simple to create professional videos and really educate folks about how to stand out in this crazy marketing environment today where there's just so much noise. And I think, really probably one of the biggest needs we hear from businesses these days is helping them stand out on social media with video. So we've been spending a lot of time really studying what makes for successful video, and how to create successful video that stands out on social media.
Yeah, I think, it's so important. And, I often talk about how important video content is and how, it's really good to kind of repurpose content into video as well. But it's one thing to actually, say, create video content, but a lot of people are quite worried about the skill set and the software, and it's easier said than done, isn't it? So I think Animoto, it's really good because it makes video creation a lot more accessible to people, doesn't it? And I just wondered, so what sparked the idea for Animoto, and how did it evolve?
Well, so interestingly, I guess before Animoto, my colleague and I, we were actually working in the TV industry. So I was a producer for MTV and Comedy Central, and my co-founder was, doing some documentary work for a big TV network, APC here. And, we just, these were amazing jobs and, really fun just to work with some of the most, talented, TV and film folks out there. But, we really saw just how fast, this was, maybe 15 years ago, we saw how fast everything was changing. And mind you, this is like before the iPhone, really before Facebook and all that. But, we kind of just thought the internet was starting to change everything. Mobile was starting to change everything. These phones were getting smaller and smaller to the point where you could almost fit them in your pocket. And it seemed inevitable that, these phones might have internet connection one day and maybe even a camera and, cloud computing. And so we were just like, wow, everything's about to change. And we just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so we started just working kind of nights and weekends to try to prove out the technology of, it's kind of the nerdy side of things, but rendering video in the cloud at scale. And, I guess, fast forward to today, it's amazing to see, how even though a lot has changed in terms of, platforms and devices, the importance of video has really kind of only grown over the years and just kind of continues to grow. And I think it's just because, it's just we are visual creatures, right? We gravitate towards things that are visually compelling, starting with compelling graphics, but anything that's moving is even more compelling, right? And I think that for us, just to see, not just that, because, video is magical, in terms of like a form of communication, but now especially there's just study after study after study about how effective video really is. It's not just kind of like, something more interesting or more entertaining. It's, people actually, for example, recall 6 times the amount of information from a video than from text, or, after watching a video, 64% of people are more likely to make, say like a purchase decision online, or video generates like 12 times more shares, on social media than text and images combined. And there's just stat after stat, study after study. So it's just amazing to be able to kind of live in this world where video really is kind of changing everything, and to really kind of be a part of, educating folks and helping folks really kind of harness the power of video. Is just something that, I've always been a part of video my whole life. And so to be able to kind of, see other people really kind of leverage the power of video has been really fulfilling.
Yes, it's so important, isn't it? And I think for anyone listening to the podcast who is thinking about creating video for marketing, for content marketing for business, I think it's true that, businesses just can't ignore video anymore. If you've been kind of trying to ignore it a little bit and still carrying on with kind of written content and audio, that's all great. That's absolutely fantastic. All content is great, but, everything that you were just saying, it's so important. It's more just a missed opportunity, I suppose, if you aren't creating video content, isn't it? And in terms of video marketing, so where do you see the platforms, which ones are working the best? So we've got YouTube video, we've got Facebook video, we've got IGTV now as well, short Instagram stories and video on Twitter. So, based on your experience, if people are going to start creating video content, where do you think they should be placing that video content?
So great question. So I think all of the ones that you mentioned are, have a role in the world of social media. I would say, just to maybe start with a punchline, really, if you were to start someplace, Facebook really is, by the numbers, still the biggest. It's not only the biggest social platform, but it really has the most kind of advanced tools to really target very specific audiences, which we can talk more about, in a minute. But really, Facebook is a fantastic place to start because it's, everyone's on it, and you can really get very precise about, targeting folks that are interested in very specific areas, so that that your content and your video will actually resonate with, the folks that you're putting in front of. But really, one thing that we've learned, we did actually a bunch of tests this year to kind of see, well, what is the difference between all these social platforms? Like, can you, for example, take the same piece of content or the same video and just post it to all these different sites? Well, of course you can, but we start to see differences in performance on these various platforms. And in a nutshell, maybe I'll just kind of address maybe like the 4 most important ones. They all have their different kind of characteristics of what tends to perform better, and it's because people tend to spend time on these different social platforms with different expectations. So, for example, Facebook is a great place for updates, just keeping folks updated with what's going on with your brand or your business or in your world. Instagram, which Facebook, owns, but Instagram is actually really great for kind of more inspirational content. People want to know, like, what's interesting, what's inspiring, and that's why visual content works especially well on Instagram. Twitter is really great for kind of what's new, like what's happening right now, almost kind of like what's happening today. You might tweet something like, I'm speaking this afternoon at this conference, or, I would love for you to come see me. So Twitter is very much in the moment. And YouTube is almost a place where people go where they want to learn something. It's almost, some people actually say that Facebook isn't a social platform per se, because people aren't necessarily going to YouTube to connect with other people. It's almost kind of like a search repository of video content. People go to YouTube to learn something. They're like, how to, how to do XYZ, how to fix something, how to, improve something in their house or in their lives or whatever. So YouTube is really a fantastic place to put kind of more educational content or demos or how-tos or stuff like that. So when you kind of start to see how people are really using each of these different platforms, you can start to kind of tailor the content you have to make sure that it's, kind of being most successful on the various platforms. So that's kind of just in a quick summary form, the differences of them. But I would say if you're thinking of starting anywhere, Facebook is a fantastic place, kind of the most general place to really, I think, get started and to start seeing great results.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I love what you said there about, breaking it down in terms of what people want. And I think, I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting this exact same video on all of the different platforms, but I think what you said is perfect in terms of if you created, for example, a really good YouTube video that was maybe a little bit longer than what you would put on some of the other platforms, then Facebook's more the update place. You can update people on Facebook that you have that video on YouTube by maybe taking the first, like the introduction to the video, take the first 60 seconds, post that on Facebook and, tell people it's a new YouTube video up and market the YouTube video through Facebook, and maybe take an even shorter clip from the video, maybe like you said, more of an inspirational or funny clip or something that's going to entertain people, put that on Instagram.
Exactly.
There's lots that you can still do by breaking the videos down, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think that everything that you said there is fantastic advice, I think, because especially, for this audience, which are folks that really already have kind of a huge, I'll say unfair advantage in the world of video, because this audience are already folks that understand the importance of regularly communicating content and are already creating amazing content, which is already several steps ahead of most other businesses. And I think, as we think about video is not this one-off kind of to-do item on your marketing checklist, right? It's a form of communication, just like content marketing. And so I think what you were saying is exactly right. So if you already have the benefit of having so much great content, but even there, you can think about, for example, if you have a longer piece of content, whether it's written or in video or, wherever it lives, a fantastic, I'm just repeating what you said, but I just really want to emphasize, a fantastic tip is to basically create kind of like, I call them teaser videos, almost like what a movie trailer does for a movie. And, take the most interesting part or the most interesting, quote or line or whatever kind of piece of the content is, and use that as a teaser. And so it may live on your blog, it may live on your site, it may live, maybe on YouTube, but you can take a little 10, 15 second snippet, make it a video, or even make it like if it's text, make it a quote video with text and put it on Instagram or put it on Facebook. And that's a fantastic way to drive even more people to your content, right? And so what's great about that is you're not, right, this is the whole spirit of this show, which is you're not actually having to create new content. You're figuring out how to leverage your existing content and really kind of get more use out of it. So think about creating these teaser videos to put out there to, either to reveal maybe a new, a new episode or a new posting or, a new video, or to, to really kind of share the, I've seen other people do things like the best of 2018 or something like that, taking some of the kind of like recaps of, some of the best moments or the best pieces of information from their content. So lots of great ideas there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about some advice that another guest, Andy Crestadina, who was talking about SEO on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he was talking about creating a video trailer for your blog post, actually. So when you write, a long form blog post, to repurpose the blog post by creating a video, but more like a trailer, so more just letting people know the highlights of what's going to be covered in the blog post, what they're going to learn from it, that kind of thing. And then put that at the top of your blog post, because there's an SEO advantage of having video at the top of pages. People tend to stay a little bit longer, so you get, more benefit from Google for people staying on the page a little bit longer. And then, of course, as well as being at the top of the page of your website, helping you with SEO there, you then put that trailer on Facebook, getting people over to your blog posts, on YouTube, maybe break it down into a teaser like you were saying for Instagram, places like that. So that's kind of even another example of where you can take your written content into video, into all these different places again. So
and I'll actually piggyback on that, and I know, talking to a lot of different content marketers and social media managers and stuff, I'll call it excuse. One excuse I hear from folks about why they haven't gotten started with video, even though they know all the benefits, is they all say stuff like, well, I mean, the reason why I'm a content marketer is I'm not comfortable being in front of the camera or something like that. And, I just want to point out that you don't actually have to be in the video, to create a video. I think sometimes people think like, oh, video means I have to be like talking into the video, but you can certainly, there's, if you just scroll through your social media, feeds, there's all sorts of videos that are just, maybe text, a quote, in text form, or you can actually even do, videos with maybe just some voiceover. So there's plenty of ways, and you don't need that much, content, right? Like, you just need maybe, you could do a top 5 list, or 3 reasons why you should tune in to blah, blah, or 3, four ways to improve XYZ, or just a great quote, or maybe a testimonial quote. So there's plenty of ways that you can create videos without you having to be in the video if you are camera shy. That said, I always am encouraging folks to try, if they're comfortable, or even if they're uncomfortable, just to try putting their their face out there, because I think increasingly, and we even see this in some of the tests we do, there really is something to kind of putting a face to your content, because in this world of information overload, figuring out ways to humanize your brand and your company and your everything that you're doing really helps you, is one great way to stand out from everyone else. And because I think when you can figure out ways to humanize yourself and your brand, it feeds into this, you hear a lot about authenticity, and the reason that's important, right, is because that contributes to that sense of trust that your audience has in you. And there's this great quote, I can't remember, I think it's a gentleman who's Zig Ziglar, who said this. He said, if people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you. And which I just love that quote. But I think just however you can find ways to make you and your brand or your company more authentic, more trustworthy, the better your chances are of standing out. And video, there's no better way than to try to capture the most authentic version of you and your brand and your company than video. So just a few more thoughts.
I completely agree. And I mean, if people kind of take that up a notch and do live video as well, I mean, then you're offering people the access to you, and you put yourself in quite a vulnerable position as well. You don't know what people are going to ask you if it's a Q&A, and you've got to, demonstrate your knowledge off the cuff. And, I think live video experiences are also becoming more and more popular, and again, a great thing to do. And then you can go on and repurpose live videos into lots of different content as well. But that said, I do really like, so a key feature of Animoto is that it does allow you, if you want, to create videos that are that don't necessarily need to have you on camera. I'm right in thinking, I've had a little look at it myself and played with and used it a few times. I think it's brilliant because you can pair engaging graphics with B-roll, with bring the words on and everything like that without having advanced video editing knowledge, and still create very good videos. I mean, that is a good key feature of Animoto, isn't it? That you don't have to be on camera.
Yeah, I think what we, in addition to just kind of giving that flexibility of different types of videos, I think the main thing we wanted to try to create is something that you don't have to have any experience with video editing to know how to, to make a great video. And so the paradigm that we kind of embraced for Animoto, it's basically kind of like built on this building block type interface where you just drag and drop these building blocks, and a building block can be either an image or, some text or, maybe a video clip, and you just drag these big building blocks around. And so there's actually, no way to create a failed video. It's almost like a toy. There's no way that you can actually create a screwed up video because we kind of make it foolproof. You don't have to have any experience with editors or timelines or any of that kind of fussy stuff. You just drag and drop these big building blocks around, and you can include your logo. You can, text and colors and make sure that the font and everything like matches your brand. But yeah, and something that we actually just announced a few weeks ago is that we did announced this partnership with Getty. So we have access to their images and their video clips, all these fantastic professional quality stock images and video clips. So if you don't have any visual content maybe to pair with some of your video content, you can just drag and drop some of their content. You can do a search for whatever it is, pumpkins, and find all sorts of great video clips or images of pumpkins to pull into your video. But yeah, and you can also do voiceover. So there's all sorts of different ways, and also one of the things that we try to do to make it easy for folks is, and this is especially great for content marketers out there, is we created a whole library of starter templates that we call storyboards. So if you're trying to figure out, different types of videos or different ways to kind of maybe repurpose your content, you can kind of scroll through this whole collection and see kind of what inspires you, whether that's, a how-to video or a demo or a testimonial video or an event recap or a blog teaser or podcast teaser or whatever it is. And you can just open one of these storyboards and just drag and drop your own stuff in there, and you're kind of ready to go.
That's fantastic. And are there recommended durations for the videos based on the use of the video, the platform you might be going to put it onto, the sweet spot of number of minutes for each one?
Great question. Well, I tend to kind of say there's no exact number. I would love to be able to say 18 seconds. But really, I'd say for the most part, I think the right answer is, whatever the proper length is to capture, your message or your piece of information. But in general, I think, especially folks who are starting out with video, I'd say just remember less is more. And a really important thing, I'll give two important tips here. One is, less is more because, when you think about it, every second counts especially when you're watching video online, because this is not like a theater going audience where your audience is still going to be, sitting there watching your video 2 hours later, right? We all know, right, the nature of watching video online is, people are flying through their feeds, and if they start watching something, by definition, you start with 100% of people, and then from there, it's just going to kind of drop off. And so you'll be lucky if half the people who started watching your video are going to make it to the end. So I think that means two things. One is, remembering every second counts. And so if you made a video that's 60 seconds, maybe challenge yourself to say, hey, what can you, either cut out or make kind of more compact to really get it down to maybe like 30 seconds or 20 seconds, and really challenging yourself to really make sure that every second counts. And the other thing to remember too is, I always say, save the best for first. So if it is a longer video, take something that's really going to grab people's attention in that first second, so that when they're scrolling through their feed, they'll find something that kind of captures their attention. Mark Zuckerberg, who's the CEO of Facebook, calls it thumb stopping. Like, make something find the part of whether it's an image or a quote or a question or, a great part of a video clip, find something that's really going to capture people's attention in that first second. So, but, I think, like we were talking about the differences of the different platforms, obviously I think when you think about how people are using these social platforms, for the most part, people are on the go, they're on their mobile devices. So that means, they have short attention spans, and they're typically even watching without audio. So making sure you use text, or if you have someone talking in your video, making sure you use captions, but keeping it short is really important. But YouTube is a slightly different beast. Like we mentioned, people are usually kind of sitting down, leaning in, more engaged, and because they're kind of opting in to learn something, they typically have a longer attention span, and they're typically watching with audio. So you can kind of take your time a little bit more with your educational content on YouTube, because people have already kind of opted into being ready to spend some time with you and learn. So I'd say with YouTube, you don't have to feel quite as quite the pressure of keeping it super short, just however many minutes you need to explain what it is that you're talking about. But for the rest, certainly the shorter the better. And you'll see videos out there that are 5-10 seconds. So videos don't have to be, in fact, I usually say a video should, on social media especially, a video should really just capture one point. Maybe it's one quote or one piece of information or one statistic or something like that. And that's enough to make a great short video.
Yeah, I agree with you. I did a video last week. It was my 1-year anniversary of the podcast, and so I did this like a lessons learned video where I talked through my 5 lessons learned, and that went on YouTube, but that was about 3 minutes long. So I just then split it into the 5 40-second clips with the single point that I made for each 5, and then put them out separately on social, because it was way too long to be kind of putting on the other platforms. It was fine for YouTube, but not in my website actually. But then cutting out the single point, just what is the individual point for each one, and then using them on social. But a question I had was, so let's say, for example, you do have a video and you've tried to keep it as short as you can, but it's still, let's just say it's 5 minutes long. And you're looking at, that as you're going to look at the stats, you're going to see the points at which people just start to drop off from watching the whole video. Are there certain little tips and tricks of things that you should do at certain points at which people are probably going to start losing engagement, to kind of, inject interest again in them just before they're about to hit the X button?
Well, certainly, and something that's, maybe kind of a bit longer form, like 5 minutes, and maybe on YouTube. Certainly, a great thing you can think of is saving something for the end to kind of try to keep people watching along. So you might say, make sure to stay tuned to the end, where I'm going to share, a special, a special promotion, or, a special tip that, I don't talk about with anyone else. One reason why lists work really well is there's something just about like a top 5 list, or a top 10 list or whatever, that people just seem to want to know what number 1 is, right? So if you're going to do a list of, it sounds very kind of simple and intuitive, but you don't start with number 1, you start with number 5, and then you make your way to number 1. And so if you give people a reason, to kind of keep following along, then that's kind of a great way to get people to keep listening. But at the end of the day, I'd say, especially, you as content marketers out there, what type of content resonates with your audience. And so I think because you're already trained in really understanding the type of information and message that your audience already is interested in, and you're already trained in creating content where every word matters, I think that you already kind of have an advantage and don't have to worry quite as much about how long or short should it be, or getting people to keep. Just remember, try to keep it relatively short. On some of these social platforms, if you can extract like little teasers or tidbits, that's a great tactic. But I would say just however long the video needs to be to capture the most important parts of what you're talking about. And if it's something your audience will be interested in, they'll watch and they'll listen. And I think that's probably just the most important. It's just making sure you keep it relevant for your audience.
Yeah, making sure you get your point across and keep it relevant. Completely agree. I'd really, really love to know what your thoughts are on IGTV. What do you think of it?
I think in general, all of social media is these are really still early days. There's a lot of, it's like the Wild West. That there's still a lot of experimenting, a lot of change, a lot of people introducing, trying new things. So I think in general, one trend we're seeing right now is there is a lot of interest in Instagram and people moving over to Instagram. Especially with, I think Instagram stories in particular is going to be something that we're talking a lot about next year, because that I think has really kind of reached a tipping point where a lot of people are really interested in that stories format. I think IGTV is still a little bit of a newer format I think it's still, to be seen whether that kind of lasts or not. I think probably for our content creator community out there, the best way to think of it in terms of what we can use it for is it's better for longer form content, which kind of means that maybe anything you might be doing on YouTube might be kind of a great way to leverage what you can do on IGTV. So if you're going to create kind of like an IGTV channel, it can be a series of longer form content. So it's definitely worth experimenting with. I would still say that it's not the best place to start because there's still so few people on there. But if you feel like you've really mastered, Facebook and Instagram stories, certainly I think that would be an interesting place to experiment. But it's still early days, so I would actually, if folks out there have learned any interesting things about IGTV, I would love to hear. But it's still the early days, so.
Yeah, I completely agree. There was quite a buzz about when it was launched, but it seems everything's quieting down now. People just aren't really talking about IGTV as much. But it's funny because, I know so many people who were kind of complaining about the vertical portrait style videos and saying, well, who'd watch a long form video in portrait style? But actually, I kind of found it quite fascinating because that's how our phones are. Our phones are actually in portrait. So when we watch an IGTV video, we don't have to turn our phone. We actually watch it in the format that it is. So aspects of it made a lot of sense. It's kind of meeting people where they're at in the way that they hold the phones, accounting for the fact that most people do watch content on the phones these days. So that was kind of found it quite fascinating. I wasn't really sure on the dislike of vertical portrait videos, but of course it's not as easy to do any kind of repurposing. If you created, you can put your YouTube videos over onto IGTV and create canvases and things like that, or do some kind of terrible zooming, which doesn't look very good. But I think you have to create fresh content really for IGTV if you're going to be in it at the long game. But yeah, it just seems to have quietened down an awful lot, doesn't it? And as you said, there's not that many people on it really, so I don't think it would be the best place to start unless you're really trying to stand out by doing something different, I suppose. Yeah,
if you're really maybe trying to be a leader in space. But I think for most of us, as content creators, we want to go where we can be successful. So right now I'd say the focus should be on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have some great, educational content, then really invest in making sure your YouTube presence and your YouTube channel is, well organized and very discoverable and all that. I will say that Square Video is I think very performant on all the social platforms, and you even see like movie trailers in Square format now, because, and you would think that if anyone was kind of most loyal to the widescreen format, it would be it would be like movie producers. But the reason why I think we're seeing a lot of Square videos is it just takes up it actually specifically takes up 78% more space in your newsfeed. And so just by the fact that it's that much more visually kind of large, it actually tends to perform better. One nice thing with Animoto is kind of with a click of a button, you can kind of switch between landscape and square. And we actually also have a mobile app where you can create, the vertical format stuff. So we're experimenting with that. But I'd say a safe place for now. I think producing vertical content, like you said, is a bit trickier. Like you said, I think you do really have to kind of go into it producing vertical content in mind when you're creating it. But I think, switching between, landscape and square videos is a little bit easier because you can kind of just pick like the middle spot of your landscape video. And so I would definitely recommend, if you're creating videos for Facebook, for Twitter, for the Instagram feed, square videos is you're going to see better results with square video, and it's actually just as easy to make as a regular video. So
yeah, that's fantastic. And I suppose, as you said, if you're going to do more horizontal, be really thinking about the center and trying to make sure that if you're thinking about the fact you're going to convert it square, as long as it's all going on very well in the center, that's going to look okay, isn't it?
Yeah.
As well.
Yep.
Yeah, Square Video, when I was at Social Media Marketing World earlier this year, there was a lot of people talking about emphasizing Square Video is doing really, really well on the social platforms, and to kind of don't ignore the Square videos when you're creating content, actually focus on them. So that's a really useful tip.
Yeah.
So I guess the final question I wanted to ask you, Jason, is where can people go to connect with you, to find out more, and where's your preferred place to connect with people?
Well, I'm certainly all over social media. I thought what I maybe do is I'll just create a page, maybe like I'll make it at animoto.com/content10x. How does that sound?
Brilliant. Sounds great.
And I'll put a few links, maybe for some of the stuff that we've talked about. If people are wondering the easy ways to repurpose content, or some tips and tricks for getting started on social media, and I'll put my contact information on there. But I'd say certainly whether you're just kind of getting started with video or trying to figure out how to take things to the next level, don't hesitate to get in touch. I love talking to marketers and business owners out there and hearing about your challenges and just figuring out ways that I can, either give you ideas or help you out. So I'll create a page and put a bunch of, hopefully interesting stuff there for you. So animoto.com/content10x.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So we'll get all of that on the show notes as well. So Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show then. It's been really great talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. It's been really fun.